Got three topics open here, and I'm still trying to decide, depending on the audience, what to discuss in greater depth. But just to share with you a few thoughts of nachas. Yeah, I can see this. This is, just very carefully, this is the definition of nachas post-seminary. And the reason I show this to you, no?
It's me next year.
That's you. Jessica says that's Jessica next year. Okay. A mitzvah Shem. But I will tell you this. About this time of year. At this time of year, I'll be saying this often. At this time of year, I'll be saying this often. That there's a lot of people here. This is intimidating. I'm literally just coming to teach once in Midrash Atili, become an international speaker. So there really is nachas. I don't think I taught you, but please allow us to know when simchas happen. Apparently I got an email, but I missed it, about your wedding. I'm so happy for you, and it's such a thrill to teach students who have graduated and finished all sorts of things, to see a child born in the continuation of the Messiah that we like to teach, and the Avos Yisrael and the love of Hashem. So many different things which really merge together. I know our time is short, our time is limited. Partially, thank you technology, it takes time. And the title I was suggesting we talk about now is Alumni or Graduates, It's Up to You. Now, if titles, I'm going to make you come or not come to a class. I'm not sure, I don't know. I think the title of a book is crucial to its best sales pitch. The best sales pitch of any book is really going to be the title. Is it captivating? Is it clear? And I'd like to start with two quotes, for those who like quotes, and I'm sorry for those who have graduated, but if you remember the seminary vibe, quotes, suddenly a different booklet comes out, and pens come out, and variety of colors come out. So I'll just give you two quotes, which I think are valuable. One I heard from a dear friend, Rabbi, and the other I actually saw, you know? Right? You know what? I'm not going to mention the quote, but I forgot. I completely forgot. Did he give you a quote once about books? I'm not going to talk about it. No, I won't talk about it. No, it's not fair. It's not fair. I know he's got a share on this topic. I just forgot that, actually. You know him probably better than I do. But he's got a very important quote which he'll talk to you about. But what I want you to understand is the world of the continuation and the books that you're writing and the positions that you play in the journey of Klal Yisrael, or the different chapters that are being written in our journey. So we started with a bit of nachas, seeing here a child of one of the alumni. I'm not sure if Mrs. Kagan has seen who I'm referring to. Who's there? I'm terrible with names, and I didn't teach her.
Oh, Sarah, hi.
She was here this morning. Okay, and now I'd like to segue from nachas. I'd like to segue from nachas to nachas, and then try to stay as focused as we can for the next, 30-35 minutes. You can have a bit of a break before you continue your day with Rabbi Manning. And Baruch Hashem, many of you send emails, many of you send brachas, but some of you know of the bracelets which I was given by various grandparents. I'm not sure where she is. She's around? Vera? She went home today. Oh, so nice. So for those who are listening on recording, it might sound a bit awkward, but I do have a bracelet which I got from parents of one of the students I teach, which is actually very dear to me, and it's Poland related, and it's the spiritual high of Poland and Holocaust. But today I'm wearing a bracelet which I really want to give you all a bracha. You should be able to wear with pride. You should be able to wear with only simcha. And Baruch Hashem, yesterday we had a baby boy, and no, wrong track. Getting better. She thought everyone was clapping because she's walking in. She very coolly takes off her shades, walks into class. But it really is. It really is muzzle and it really is type. It really is muzzle, it really is type. I've got many things I'd love to share with you on this topic, and I'm going to use this, so to speak, to use more cool language to segue into our share. But there are many situations in life which you'll find yourself in, and amidst Hashem, they should all be with smiles, both on the face and in the heart. But I really find there's a few places in life I don't know anything which comes close to the magic of what we call the room of delivery, the delivery room. And I know some of you, remind me your name? Esther does amazing work, actually, in the ward, the same floor where my wife is, and others, we've got other students who are experienced in giving care in the world of medicine, and in its broader sense as well. But I really find that when you get to that room, otherwise known as the delivery room, and amidst Hashem, I really daven that it should be a journey which is smooth and happy for every single Yid, and actually every single person. It puts life in perspective, and it gives you a look at life from the brilliance of the human mind and the advancements of technology and the developments in medicine, and we really, really are lucky and grateful. I have an uncle who tragically passed away 20 years ago. The disease which he passed away from today, there's cures. It's incredible. But with all of that, fantastic, the world still has not been able to create a true human being. A robotic human which not only can have its own right of choice, read Bechira, but can make choices, can have feelings, and also can create further robots. And it's incredible. That moment of Hashem is Mafli Lases, and the series that we normally give on a Wednesday night is The Wonders of the World. Hashem Yotzar es Adam b'Chochma. Hashem Yotzar es Adam b'Chochma. Uvaravay nekavim nekavim chalulim chalulim. Hashem created the world. And in the same theme, I'll remind you of a line which I've mentioned before. I find in the world there are many sounds, many tracks, if you like. There's the ah, there's the psh, there's the wow. There's crying, there's laughing, there's singing, there's mourning. There's a whole spectrum of sounds. But I always find there are two which are magical. I don't know of two sounds which are more magical. I've mentioned this before. One sound which is magical is the sound of the heartbeat via ultrasound. One sound which is magical and perhaps even greater is that first cry. And just from a personal perspective, when our baby was born and my wife was, the baby's not breathing, the baby's not crying, and there's an anxiety for a moment. Doctor said, everything's okay, it's okay. And suddenly you hear that, and that cry comes out, and you realize, this is so much bigger than me. This world is so much bigger, and it's so remarkable, from photosynthesis to cats to predators to sunrise, sunset. And the title of today's class I'd like to speak to you about is called Alumni or Graduates, It's Up to You. Let's try and put a little perspective on these words. I'll try to share some Divrei Torah, some stories, and hopefully we can come away with some thoughts which I like to call thought for food, as opposed to food for thought. Food doesn't give you thoughts, it gives you energy to have thoughts, but thoughts can nourish. And that's what we come here for. There's a bunch of alumni here, there's going to be girls, ridiculous, but maybe many mothers listening to recordings, etc. So let's get back to the focus of alumni or graduates. It's up to you. I'm reading here online from a website known as the Online Etymology Dictionary. Etymology is the study of language, like psychology is the study of the mind, and biology is the study of cells and atoms in the human body. Etymology is the study of language. For those who remember, Rav Hirsch was a master at etymology. Someone sent me an email, my brother-in-law, bless him, said, I've got one guess what the name of this boy is going to be. We don't have a Shimshon Rafal yet. Who knows? You think you know? No. Amit Hashem. But Rav Hirsch was... oh my gosh, he told us! Oh my God! Rav Hirsch is very into etymology, and I want you to understand this. Etymology is the study of language. Some of the words that we've discussed in the language of Rav Hirsch are the brilliance of the Hebrew word bechira, the Hebrew word na'ar, which connects to the word yar, which is a forest. We spoke about this once. We spoke about the word Torah from the word moire or hoire, and we have the same in every language. The study of language, the more you can understand language, the deeper you can truly not understand the word, but understand its meaning and its reference. On that note, I'll mention a quick anecdote. Ramotcha Gifter, who was the master at languages, at least the languages he spoke, he was masterful at those languages. He was once teaching in a classroom, and he was teaching a group of kids. And he was invited to some school. It was an assembly and whatever it was, and a bunch of kids, and he mentioned an English word. And after mentioning the word, he stopped his class and he says, "Oh, by the way, kids, does anyone know what that word just meant?" And there was absolute silence. He said, "So why were you just looking at me and smiling and nodding your head and as if concentrating? You have no idea what it just said." And he said, "Yeah, you're right, but we're little boys. Our English isn't so good." And so I'll tell you why I'm telling you this. Because I was taught by my teachers that whatever language you speak Torah in, you should try to do it the best way possible. And I'm sharing now with you students, whatever element of Yiddishkeit or Judaism you're performing, do it the best way possible. Don't make do with mediocre. Don't make do with mediocre in anything. Whether it's in a classroom, whether it's in attendance, whether it's in, being present after being present in the classroom, not only attendance but being attentive. So let's use the world of etymology for a moment. I read to you from Online Etymology Dictionary, and the word I put in was alumni, otherwise known as a noun, alumnus. Alumnus, A-L-U-M-N-U-S. Perfect English translation, it's actually copy and pasted, I believe, into Wikipedia. I checked Wikipedia, it says exactly the same words. What is an alumni? A pupil or a graduate of a school. It was first recognized in the 1640s, and it comes from the Latin word alumnus, which is a pupil. Literally, actually, though, it means a foster child. In Latin. My Latin's not great. To nourish, to grow. There's different versions for how you call the masculine for an alumni. The feminine for an alumni is alumni or alumnus. That's the word alumni. Alumni literally means, again, a pupil who graduated a school. But from Latin it means either to nourish or a foster child. I move over now to another page which is open from the same website, known as the Online Etymology Dictionary, and the word I put in was graduate. Again, in brackets it says an N next to the word. Early 1500s, and it means one who holds a degree. Okay, that's how we refer to the word graduate. You've graduated a certain course, whether it's in medicine that we mentioned before, in law, whatever it might be. A graduate is someone who holds a certificate after finishing a certain educational journey. But I continue. It's from a medieval Latin word which is graduatus, which means to take a degree, but the Latin word is actually gradus. Says the dictionary. Gradus means a step or a step climbed on a ladder or stair. Maybe the word gradient comes from the same idea. Maybe the word degree, if you think of someone who's got an illness and you're trying to take their temperature, maybe comes from the same word. What Hebrew word would spring to mind? What Hebrew word would spring to mind when I mention the word graduate or gradus, meaning to step or to climb a ladder? Again, madrega. The word madrega, which actually, for those who have been to the army here, some of you have, the Hebrew word dereg is a ring, a rank. A rank. In the army, dereg is the rank, because you climb ranks. Madrega is a step, because you climb steps. Madrega, dereg, is very closely connected in sound to graduate, a grade. But what is my point? What is my point? And here's the message I'd like to share with you and slowly develop. Okay, I'm just going to continue because of time. You want to ask a question? Okay, if we have time afterwards. So we've got alumni, which is a pupil or a stepchild, and a graduate, which is someone who's climbing a step, someone who's finished something. So you've climbed the step of your law degree, and now you've got letters after your name. So cool, great. What's the difference? Why am I nitpicking at the two words? Are you alumni once you finished? or alumnesses, or graduates. We're at present in the months of the year known as Nisan, Iyar, and Sivan. I intentionally say those 3 months because we're literally at the doorstep, I think steps, of Sivan, but we're in the Hebrew month called Iyar, and if we can take a message out of Iyar, we'll be doing ourselves a favor, which I think will help us prepare for next week. We're literally days away from Rosh Chodesh Sivan, and then we start the countdown, literally the last few days, those last 4 or 5 days, 6 days, whoa, Shavuos, flowers out, cheesecakes, but it's much, much more. It's much, much more. I want to read you the words of the Ramah, otherwise known as Rabbi Moshe Isserlis. Where's he buried? In Krakow. And Rabbi Moshe Isserlis in Simon Reish Tzadi Beis says the following: between Pesach and Rosh Hashanah, there is a custom. I know not everyone does this, like many customs. By definition, there's almost no custom which everyone follows. That's okay. That's a custom. Very culturally affected, based on your family, your grandparents, their rabbis, their communities, etc. But there is a custom, very, very common, especially outside of Israel, between Pesach and Rosh Hashanah, every Shabbos to read one chapter of Pirkei Avos, otherwise known as the Ethics of the Fathers, which is a very interesting translation of Pirkei Avos. That's not really what the word means. Pirkei Avos means the chapters of the Fathers, but in essence, really it's chapters which talk about ethics. Many people have that custom, especially in Shul, to say that between Pesach and Shavuos. Why? So the Mefarshim talk about it. Some of the Mefarshim say because it talks about ethics. And as we know the line, Derech Eretz, finish, Kodma LaTorah. Many different interpretations for the words Derech Eretz, Kodma LaTorah. But one interpretation for Derech Eretz, Kodma LaTorah is, so to speak, first you have to have manners, first you have middos, and then you can grow intellectually. Which is why we spend so many years of our children's rearing. Mitzvah Shem for all of you too. So many years we spend teaching them, what's the magic word? And people doubt that. But in Klal Yisrael and in our culture, and actually in many cultures, teaching a young child habits of good behavior is the greatest introduction to life. Because teach them ethics, and that's what a father, and I say in inverted commas, we have many types of fathers in our lives. It can be the position of someone who's helping you grow, which is so much more broad than just daddy. But when you teach a child what's the right way to speak, what's the right way to behave, who do you stand up for on a bus, who do you give you space to, who do you offer first when they're sitting around the table and you've got guests, who do you pass the chicken to first, etc. When they get older, suddenly it falls into place and they'll get the deep understanding. But Rav Volba said that it's very, very important to teach our children the right behavior, even if you're going to argue, but they don't understand it, they will. They will. But allow them to be trained and to be reared in the direction of being good people. I'll quote you a pasuk. The pasuk says, Asher bonenu kinetiyim. Our children are like saplings. Finish the sentence. No, mugudalim. They grow binureim when they're young. Rabbi Yonah explains our children are like saplings. I've mentioned this in some classes. Little sapling, you put a stick next to it and you tie a little thread and it's going to keep growing. But if you're neglecting that little sapling and you don't tie a thread and you don't put a little stick, it could be a tiny little stick, then eventually it keeps on growing, and if it starts growing in the wrong direction, eventually it becomes too late. Or it becomes far harder. Far, far harder. The world of education begins so early. As actually a Rav said at my bar mitzvah, never fully understood what he was alluding to in my education, but he said in my bar mitzvah speech the following. He said, you've got parents who are very involved in your education, and he said the following story, that someone once came to the Steipler, who was the father of Reb Chaim Kanievsky, and he said to the father, he said to Reb Chaim, he said, please, I need help with my child, he's struggling with his derech in Yiddishkeit, whatever that means. For those who have taught this, you'll know, I don't like the 3 letters OTD. I don't think there is a V derech, maybe OYD on your derech. We all have a derech we need to follow, we need to be committed to. But my child's struggling with their derech. And the Steipler said, how old's your child? Before I give a blessing and direction, how old's your child? And he said, my child's 18. And he said, I'm really sorry, but you're 18 years too late. Because rearing a child is literally from the early bracelet days, so to speak, but it's from the beginning of the journey. I say this because the Vilna Gaon writes like this. The Vilna Gaon writes, Eishes chayil miyimtza v'rochoik mipninim mechra. It's a song which we often think of that as a romantic song sung when we're under the chuppah, and a mitzvah Shem will be sung for you under the chuppah. And when that happens, it will be a very, very meaningful, spiritually romantic song. But it was actually written and sung by Avraham Avinu, where? At Sarah's funeral. At Sarah's funeral, in fact, Ramatziel Solomon read through every sentence at his wife's funeral, Miriam, and said how it's appropriate and applicable to his own wife. But the Vilna Gaon writes, what is this Eishes Chayil? What is this Eishes Chayil? Says the Gaon of Vilna. Eishes Chayil is referring to the Torah. And it's called Eishes Chayil. It's called Eishes Chayil because the Hebrew word Chayil, I'm just going to be a teacher for a moment. Stay with me. The Hebrew word Chayil is the numerical value of 48. Says the Vilna Gaon, you might be aware, there is something called 48 Kinyonei HaTorah. What does that mean? What's the 48 Kinyonei HaTorah? 40 ways to acquire Torah. Some of Hashem say 48 things that if you learn Torah, you'll actually be given as a gift. Different ways of looking at it. We don't have time to discuss it. In the yeshiva called Slobodka from Lithuania, the Rabbis there used to teach that every day of Sfiras Hayimah you should focus on one of those 48. One of those 48, some of them is to learn, to review, to have good friends. Some of them is to care for your friends. In fact, yesterday's one was beautiful. It's Oyemed al Shleim Chaverai, which loosely translates as make sure your friends have peace. Say the Mefarshim, Oyemed al Shleim Chaverai means worry about your friend's emotional health. One of the greatest classics on Mishnayos. That's what he writes. Tidag l'shleim nefesh shel hachaverim shelcha. Worry about your friend's emotions. What a beautiful line. That's one of the 48 Kinyonei HaTorah. Ask many people, specifically women, what about us? What about us? What about me? Says the Vilna Gaon, women also have 48. That's the Eishes Chayil. 8 plus 10 plus 30 is 48. Eishes Chayil miyimtza. But let's take it considerably deeper. One of the 48 crucial parts of acquiring Torah is what's known in Hebrew as Emunas Chachamim. Translate? Believing wisdom, believing teachers. Literally believing someone who's wiser than you or more experienced, who's got something to teach you. Emunas Chachamim is a very challenging part of the life of a Jew because it's demanding a lot of humility. And I know we're talking to alumni, and I know we're talking to graduates. But here's my point. When we think of the 48 Kinyonei HaTorah, it made me think of these two words, alumni and graduate. You can choose, and I know that many of you, the countdown's on. It's less than a month. It's less than a month. Exactly. That was the right track. Towards what I call, what's known as Tissue Day, which is the day of graduation and banquet. That's a frightening stage. But I want you to make a choice. Are you going to become alumni or are you going to become graduates? Or those who have, are you alumni or graduates? Nafka mina, what's the difference? An alumni, you want to call it a stepchild, but you want to call it someone who's been educated and a pupil, great. That's what alumni is. You want a pupil. Or you can choose to be a graduate. And a graduate is someone who's climbing. A graduate, coming back to Rabbi Google, a graduate is that person, from the Latin, is taking a step, and it's steps which are being climbed. And I believe that's not just semantics. I believe it's not just semantics. I'm not talking about statistics, I don't know them. But I think there's a very clear division between girls who leave seminary as alumni and alumnesses, or whatever the word is, alumnois in Hebrew, and people who leave as graduates. I think there's a very, very deep distinction. They both graduated. They might both, quote, have letters after their name. Been there, done it. It's on my resume. You can even talk to Rabbi Kagan. I was there. My attendance wasn't bad. Fine. I hope no one asks about how well you did in tests and how many credits you got or didn't got, whatever, if there's such a word. And I hope your value is far greater, but I hope in your eyes your value is that you're not alumni, you're graduates. Because a graduate, so to speak, those people that I'm talking to here, who I haven't spoken to most of this year, these few faces in the room, and those who are on Zoom, and those who are listening to recordings on Zoom, I think they're giving us a great message for those who are here in Shana Aleph. And that is, don't be alumni. Be graduates. Keep the climb going. Eishes Chayil Miyimta. Being an Eishes Chayil isn't a one-off. Wow, it's a cool title. I now got married. I'm an Eishes Chayil. Not at all. Because you're not called a soldier if you don't go through training. You can't climb ranks or get protexia to reach a top rank to a certain degree. If you're not appropriate for the job, you're putting the country at risk. That's insanity of the people in higher ranks. You work your way up, maybe. You'd never do surgery with someone who became a surgeon based on protexia. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. It's beyond careless. Forget ethics. But that's a graduate. A graduate is someone who's continuously becoming that soldier. And a soldier always wants to climb ranks. A soldier doesn't want to make do with those few notes on their shoulder. If they can get more, the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit. One of the thrills, which we've spoken about many times, but sadly I can't actually find a way of you to touch that thrill. But it's that thrill of learning in a Beis HaMedrash and in the yeshiva. We've spoken about this in our Mosera series. But that thrill is electric. It's something which is very hard to define. But if I had to put it down to very simple English, it's the thrill of being a graduate. It's not for nothing that Rav Kanievsky, one of the greatest names that we had in recent Jewish history. Really, his devotion to Torah. He wasn't such a bright man. He wasn't known as a child prodigy. He was known as a child masmid. He was a kid who just didn't give up. He just sat and learned. He actually went very much against the tide, because the tide says you have a chavrusa in yeshiva. But he enjoyed learning on his own. Most yeshivas, that's not okay. In fact, that's maybe what some people would call SO today. What they refer to as socially off. In fact, funny anecdote, my wife's named Bias, now she's on maternity leave, and when you do attendance and you write the letters SO, it means something very different. It normally means sleeping out. And it became very awkward when girls are like, why are you writing next to my name as a son SO? You're living in a generation of abbreviations. But don't abbreviate your journey. Don't allow your journey of growth to be abbreviated. Reb Chaim Kanievsky, he didn't let that happen. And he is known in Hebrew as a Talmid Chacham. What does Talmid Chacham mean? Just call him a Chacham. He wasn't a Talmid Chacham. He was the greatest example in our world today of being a Chacham. He reached it. He was there. He made it. He made it. He was the role model for thousands and tens of thousands of Jewish kids. Why is he called the Talmid Chacham? Because a true Chacham is always the Talmud. A true Chacham is always the Talmud. I want to share with you two stories about Emunas Chachamim. The second story, though, I want to take it one step further and then try and put things together. So many stories which are worth sharing. There's one story which I always find very dear. I don't think I've told you the story. If I've told you the story, please stop me and I'll reinsert a different story. There was a man known as Reb Elchanan Wasserman. Anyone heard the name? What do you know about Reb Elchanan Wasserman? No? Where was he from? What do you know about the end of his life? He was killed where? He was killed in the Holocaust. He was actually in England and then in America. There were people who offered to transport the whole yeshiva out of Europe. Complicated decisions, not for me or you to discuss, but he made the decision his boys need him. Very complicated. We can have feelings about this. It's much deeper than feelings. It's a situation which we should never know. We've never known. But he made the decision based on Torah, which was the right decision for him and his yeshiva. He went back to the boys. parents had trusted these boys to him. He couldn't leave them stranded. He went back to be with his boys, but he was killed in 9th Fort together with 13 other members of staff and students, and other boys were killed elsewhere, but that was 1943. Rabbi Chanan Wasserman was known as a great fundraiser, but he was known as a great teacher. And Rabbi Chanan Wasserman was once traveling, and he got to a certain town in Europe. It was freezing cold outside. And he was trudging through the snow, knocking on people's doors. And eventually he knocked on the door of a certain man. His name was Bainish. He knocks on the door of Bainish. His family name was Dennis. Bainish answers. He was expecting Bainish to answer. Suddenly the door opens. It wasn't Bainish. I want to tell you an amazing story. It was freezing cold outside. He was trudging through the snow. But he felt bad. He didn't want to dirty Bainish's house. It was a stunning home. The sort of home that we would call perhaps carpet meets chandeliers. It was fancy schmancy. Furniture was great. It was an awesome royal home. So he didn't want to upset Bainish. He goes to the back of the house. He knocks on the kitchen's window. The lady comes to the window, says, "Can you go to the door?" He goes to the back door. She opens the door. He comes inside. Says, "Please, can I speak to Mr. Dennis?" She says, "Rabbi, 1 minute. And she runs off, and she goes to call Dennis. Mr. Dennis, his first name was Bainish. He comes running into the kitchen. He sees Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, and like this, he becomes furious. He's screaming and shouting at Rabbi Chanan Wasserman. Rabbi Chanan's taken aback. He's never been spoken to, not by this man for sure, in such a way. What's happening and now? What's going on? He says, "Please, no, get out of my house." He says, "Really?" He says, "Sorry, what did I do? What did I say? I haven't even said hello. I haven't seen you for a while. I was expecting a hug. I was expecting a warm shalom aleichem." He says, go to the front of my house, knock on the front door. Then I'll see you. You don't come in the back entrance." So he makes his way to the front of the house. He rings the bell. Within moments, the door opens. Bainish answers the door. His face is radiant with a smile. "Shalom aleichem, come inside, please. Oh, I'm so happy to see you. What can I do for the yeshiva?" He comes inside. He says, no, but I don't want to walk beyond the mat because of my shoe. "Don't worry about your shoes. It's fine. Come inside." He says, "No, let me just take it." "Leave your boots." He said, "No, my coat." "Leave your coat." He brings him into the dining room. And he says, "Please take a seat on the couch." He says, No, please don't make me take a seat on the couch. I'm going to dirty your furniture." "My furniture? Oh, don't worry about my furniture." He sits down. He sees the footprints. Not in the snow, now it's in the carpet. He feels awful. They have a conversation, a beautiful conversation. He's so confused. What happened? "I come in, you're screaming and shouting. You bring me into your house, you're so warm. What's happening?" He brought him a warm drink. They had a schmooze. "What's going on with the yeshiva? How can you help?" He said 1 minute. He went outside, came back, gave him a beautiful check. Beautiful check for the yeshiva. He said to him, "I'm really sorry. Rabbeinish. We're friends, I thought. I came in, you shocked me. What happened?" He said, "I'll tell you what happened. I've got two daughters. I have been teaching my daughters throughout their lives that there's nothing more important in my home than the love of Torah. How that defines itself. I'm a working man, but I respect Torah. Anytime I've got spare, I'll learn Torah. Every direction we take is through rabbis like yourself. But when you came into my kitchen, I thought you were ruining my children's education." "Ruining your children's education? That's a bit extreme." He says, "No, I'll tell you what I mean. When you come in the back entrance, you're basically teaching my children, this isn't conscious maybe, but you're teaching my children that as important Torah is, but a rabbi shouldn't dirty my carpet. And I want my children to know, for a rabbi, my carpet can get dirty. It's absolutely fine. The Gadol Adar. Rabbi Chanan Wasserman comes to my house. Nothing is more valuable than us showing him respect. And by you coming into the back entrance, my children are going to get an element of Torah is important, but not until it comes to daddy's carpet. You can dirty my carpet. It's absolutely fine. I have no problem with that." Bainish had the merit of having his daughters married to great Rosh Hashiva. His daughters both had two daughters, and they married great Rosh Hashiva. I'll tell you some of the names. Some of you recognize them. His daughters, one was called Rachel, one was called Reisha. They both married two people. They were brothers. Two sisters married two brothers, and they were known as the Bloch family. They were both Rosh Hashivas in the Telz Yeshiva. Telz in Europe. They both had 2 daughters. They had other children too, but 2 of the daughters I want to talk about. These 2 girls married Blochs, the Rosh Yeshivas of Europe. 2 of the Rosh Yeshivas, one of the greatest yeshivas in Europe. They both had a family, and their 2 children, they both had 2 girls who married the following names. Tell me if you recognize these names. And if you don't, put on your research caps, you must. Because coming out of America today, with an association with Yiddishkeit, these are parts of those list of names on the Wall of Fame of Klal Yisrael in America. With Moshe Feinstein, Rabbi Aaron Kotler, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, Rabbi Eli Melech, otherwise known as Mike Tress, Rabbi Shagu Feifel Mendelovich, Rabbi Moshe Shera. But these are some of the names you've got to know. You've got to know. And if you didn't recognize the names I just mentioned, go to Rabbi Wiki and then go to Yafeinov and buy some biographies. Be curious with our past. But these 2 girls, Blochs now, they were Dennis, they had 2 children each. One married a man called Ramotcha Gifta. One married a man called Rabbi Isaac Osband. One married a man called Rabbi Chaim Stein. And one married a man called Rabbi Baruch Sorotsky. All 4 founded the yeshiva in Cleveland, today known as the Telz Yeshiva, and they were all 4 part of the leading staff members. And when someone asked Baynish Dennis, who was at the time living in Petach Tikva towards the end of his life, he survived the war, he was living in Petach Tikva, what was the zuchos that you had? To have 2 children marrying great Rosh Yeshivas, 4 of your grandchildren marrying some of the greatest leaders in America today. He said, I put it down to that story. He said, for me, you can argue. For me, I put it down to that story. Teaching my children that as comfortable as we are, Torah is always going to be the compass in my home. Torah is always going to be the focal point in my home. And I want to take it one step further, and we'll finish with this. One step further, it's not just Emunah Chachamim we want when we're talking about graduates, when we're talking about the grades. I think Chachamim are pointers. I think teachers are pointers. Male or female, the staff which you've had here, the staff which you've had in your formal education up until this point, we're just arrows. Literally, I really look at myself as what they call the lollipop man in England, which is the guy who helps children cross the road in the morning. He's holding that stop sign. He's just trying to control traffic. He's just trying to make sure children can get from one side of a stormy road, perhaps, so to speak, to the other. But what are we pointing you towards? What is the grades? What is that ladder in Yaakov Avinu's dream which we're trying to climb as we leave or continue the journey of growth? Just to end with this. Very moving story, a sensitive story, and we'll close. There was a Rosh Yeshiva, a Rav in America, I think he's still alive. I've never heard him. I've got many students who have heard many classes by him. His name is Rabbi Fishel Schechter. Yeah? Some of you are nodding? I don't know him personally, but I know he's a very special and a very influential personality in America on many, many people's lives, and I've just heard great things about him. One day, maybe we'll meet. But Rabbi Fishel Schechter said the following story. He said there was a lady, and again, I'm sorry for taking us to an element of sadness, but it brings out a beautiful message. There was a lady who was a Holocaust survivor. She was a Holocaust survivor. She settled in America. She was married for 12 years. But sadly, she didn't have children. Sadly, she didn't have children. We daven, everyone should be to children, healthy. Hashem's got plans. What are we? We're on his chessboard at times. But she didn't have children for many years. She tried everything. She tried everything. Eventually someone told her, on Madison Avenue, again, I'm just telling you names, these are the details, I don't even know where that is, somewhere in the States, but in Madison Avenue, in America, there is, in Manhattan obviously, yeah, in Madison Avenue in Manhattan, there's a specialist who, if you haven't been to him, go to him. An element, a spark of hope. And she began her journey. She was extremely moved, hoping, davening. She went to this doctor. He looks through her medical files, looks through the details, and after a while, caringly as doctors can be, but they need to be clear, juggle. Not for now, sometimes doctors play Hashem for their security and insurance policies. But he was a very ehrliche person, he was a very refined person, and he said, I'm really sorry, I've been through the file and I've looked and I've tried to understand from what I'm seeing. Of Piteva, naturally it's impossible. She goes back on the bus on Madison Avenue. She is broken. She's traveling on the bus, she's going in the direction of home, and she gets lost in her riviere of complete dream world of what's life and what's it for and why and if only. And one of the greatest challenges I think we have, I call this, our greatest Yetzer Hara is the Yetzer Hara of if only. If only. And she got caught up in that world. She was really, really down, really depressed. The reason why she was so down is she was a Holocaust survivor. When she was a child, she was hiding with her family. Her family had built an underground hideout. There was a latch which you could lift up. Everyone ran down if the Nazis were on the way. One of the kids had to hide behind the sofa, and they took a rotation, and there was a string attached to a carpet. So once everyone was down and they closed that latch, or that, so to speak, doorway down into the underground hidden compartments of the home, they pulled back that carpet and they were safe, well out of sight. She was the oldest, and she was very often asked to be that one behind the furniture. She's hiding behind the sofa, and one day she pulls back, everyone's downstairs, everyone's safe, and she's hiding as quietly as she could, trying to fend for herself. Nazis come running in, looking up and down, searching the home. Nada, they can't find anyone. What a shame for them. Baruch Hashem. She's beginning to breathe a sigh of relief. And as they're leaving the living room, one of the Nazis stops a second. And he noticed as he was walking that there was a different sound at one area of the floor. He pulls back the carpet and he finds where the family was hiding. And to cut a very painful story short, she was the sole survivor eventually of that family. To the best of her knowledge, she was the only one who survived. So she's sitting there hoping, she was pleading to have a continuation. She's going on the bus and she completely misses her stop. She gets to the end of the line. The bus turns around and does the same route again. And turns around again. And literally all day she's on this bus, but caught up in her own world. She's so broken, she's just giving up with everything. Whatever that meant for her. And it gets to the end of the day. She didn't even realize. The bus driver suddenly taps her on the shoulder and says, "Oh, excuse me, ma'am. I noticed that you've been on the bus all day. And I was fine with it. And I decided to completely ignore. But it's the end of my day and I'm sorry. Whatever you're dealing with, staying on the bus ain't going to help. And I've got to go home." That was his line. Whatever you're dealing with, staying on the bus ain't going to help. And I got to get home. And that moment she got off the bus. She looked up to Hashem and she said, whatever I'm dealing with, staying on the bus ain't going to help. I've got nothing to turn to. I've tried everything. The only thing I can do is turn to you, Hashem. 12 years. Every doctor I found. Nothing doing. And she burst into tears and davened to Hashem. 9 months later she gave birth to a child. The official Shechter said over this story, and he says, you might not believe me, but I was that child. That was my mother. That was my mother. And what I want you to remember, and I know it's an intense story in parts, but the message we all cross in our lives, I've crossed this many times this week. No great example. That miraculous sound, that salil, as we call it in Hebrew, of that baby's cry. So I'll just end. My grandfather once said, I believe in the House of Lords, he quoted a certain rabbi, known as the author of the Gesher HaChaim Sefer. His name was Rabbi Tukatinsky. He said there were twins who were about to be born. And one of them saw that one of the children is beginning to move. Its brother is beginning to move and get lost. "Oi, where's my brother going?" And then suddenly Nebuch, this twin who's still in the Rechem, and we'll end with this twin who's still in the womb, is thinking about its brother, and then suddenly it hears its brother crying, and it's like, "Ay vey, my twin brother, what world has he gone to?" But that twin doesn't realize that's where the work begins. That's where the journey begins. Why is a baby born crying, not laughing? There's a reason for that. We're leaving a world of an angel teaching us, but there's a thrill in being on a journey that we can grow. So in conclusion, as we make our journey towards Sfiras HaOmer, towards Shavuos, and as tonight we're going to start entering the final week of the countdown. For those who haven't said Sfira, tonight's the night after 41. I haven't. Tonight's the night after 41. And we're just going to conclude the 6th week, and we're going to move into the last final countdown. Remember, in life you can choose. You want to be an alumni, or you want to be a graduate. But it's up to you. The growth upwards is a journey which we can choose to make. We have experiences which slow us down, experiences which speed us up. Please, a bracha to you all. those who are here, those who were here, those who are here now to join. Live your lives like Rav Chaim Kanievsky. Always be Talmidei Chacham. Always be students. Always be teachable. Let's end with the quote which was created here a couple of weeks ago. If you start your day reminding yourself to be teachable, the rest of the day will be your classroom. Start your day reminding yourself to be teachable, and then every experience you go through is your classroom. It's been thrilling and distracting, but beautifully distracting to see the Weiner kids. I think have I seen them all? Almost. But I've seen a bunch of them. One nachas, and Amit Hashem, the nachas is when we continue the growth. Become graduates. Stay graduates. Keep climbing. It's an upwards journey.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Avi, Emmanuel, wow. Zahava. Who is with Zahava? I see two of you.
Hi, Rabbi.
How are you?
I just heard you had a baby boy.
Taylor, sorry. Wow. Really good. Elisheva. Really good to see you. Where's Elisheva's sister? She's here somewhere. Ms. Epstein, you want to say hi to Elisheva? Yeah. Elisheva? Elisheva, can you hear me? You know the Baruch Hashem, we had a baby boy. I hope you heard that. 2 days ago. And here's your sister coming to say hi.
Hi. Where is she? Oh, hi.
Hi. Really good to see you all. And Zahava, really good to see you too. And you still have simchas and nachas and be well. Yes.
Can you write down the names of the rabbis we were talking about? The ones that we should know?
Sure.
Like heavy. Are you going to do this all in pro at any time?
Shauna, happy birthday.
Thank you. You've got 1 minute. Hello. Hi. Hi, Sarah. How are you? So sweet. I'm gonna I'll send out the videos and the recordings later, hopefully later tonight or tomorrow. Yeah. Oh, I don't know if that was recorded. I'll find out. Okay. Next time you'll come and do it also. Who's that? Who's that?
One time Stein.
Hi.
Isn't that nachas?
No. They live in Ramat Beit Shemesh. Sarah's in Ramat Beit Shemesh. Wait, I can't hear you. Say it again. Yes. That's a great idea. Come visit, okay? Bye.
You know,
I really have to come to Ramat Beit Shemesh and make up. My husband
have an alumni day with kids.
With kids, that's a great idea.
Yeah, we'll do a carnival
That
for
was
them.
that carnival.
We can look after
That's a
that.
great idea. That's a great idea. That would be amazing.
We'll look after the kids. And
Okay.
I'll talk to the kids.
We just said Rabbi Turner had an idea that we should have an alumni day with the kids, like a carnival for the kids.
Isaac Osman. Who else did we mention?
Right. I wish I could tell you. Okay. Bye. Be well. Bye.
Isaac Osman.
Bye. Okay. How do I turn this off? And.
Yes.
Oh, here, turning it off. Do you want me to help you?
Keppel has to turn it off because you don't want it not to save.
It is saved. It's recording.
Saving?
Yeah, you can
Press
pause
stop
the
recording.
recording.
No, stop the recording because you want it to
Yeah,
save.
yeah.
Where's it saving?
Stop
Stop
recording.
recording.
Yeah, don't go do it. Don't do it yet. Otherwise you might lose it.
It's gonna
Did you see any of those people? Moshe Shara, Rav Aaron, Rav Yaakov, Rav Moshe Feinstein.
Did I ever see them? I never saw Rav Moshe Feinstein. Rav Sher, no. Rav Gifter, I went from Cleveland. The whole Tells community. I was in Detroit. I lived in Detroit, so we were part of the Tells community. Of the Blochs and the Desslers and the Gifters. Yeah. That was
Wow. You saw it in Mukli, yeah?
No.
You're such a speaker.
Really?
Oh, it's just so long.
Do you want to turn this off?
Yeah, but I don't know how to do it to save the
Okay,
recording.
so let me go get my husband. And this is off also?
I don't know how that looks.
I don't know how this works either. Whoa, dinner! So good. Come, ladies, are coming down. Come join us in the other room. You are such a schmoozer. Knock, knock. I think this is off. Could you come down and just help us?
Yeah, okay, let me just, I'll come right now.
Yeah, come down.
I need to help because Rabbi Manning is, hold on one second, yeah.
How much time do you have? Do you have a minute?
Yeah, for sure. I just want to, let me just give me 1 second.
Yeah.
You can come back, we'll go, come. Just close up the, oh, Patricia Tequila, nothing left to eat. Baruch Hashem. That's the spirit. Thank you.
Not to close it. Just we shouldn't lose.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you.
We'll see you back as well. Very good day.
Amen.
I'm a flashy car, I'm afraid.
Wait, Susan? This is Kagan? What exactly, does he want to zoom it?
No,
Just a recorder. Okay, fine. Yeah. Where's Ricky Wines? Who's super technically capable? Great. Can you record? Just Rabbi Manning, can you record what's going on with Rabbi Manning?
What do you mean if you just press record?
What? Which all are we referring to at this point? Yeah, she wanted Miss Burnham. Miss Burnham doesn't let us record. What? No.
I wanted this for a talk about
What?
it. Can't be recorded.
Yeah. Okay, here you go. This is very complicated. The see that says power?
Yeah.
That's not referring to you being part of the Democratic Party. What it means is you pull this button down like that.
Okay, and then
Actually, excuse me.
you said it on TV.
1 second.